KERN.
Now it's MoneyWise with the MoneyWise guys on KERN Radio News Talk 1180 with Bakersfield's financial professionals.
I need a dollar, 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 that's what I need. Hey, hey, well I need a dollar, 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 that's what I need.
Now here are the MoneyWise guys.
That's right. We're the MoneyWise guys, and we're back for the second hour, folks. Welcome back to the program. We're going to bring on our guest here. Very excited to have on the phone with us Heather Wagenhals. She's a personal finance expert, host of Unlock Your Wealth Radio, author of Yes You Can. She is an expert in personal finance and wealth-building techniques, celebrated columnist, developer of Keys to Riches financial wellness series, as well as an internationally recognized writer, speaker, and broadcast professional. Today we're going to be talking about marriage and money. Heather, welcome to the MoneyWise radio program. How are you doing today?
Well, I would be better at 75 degrees if I was in studio with you guys, seeing as I'm in Arizona.
No, whereabouts? I'm originally from Arizona. Where in Arizona are you?
Oh, I'm a native, actually. I'm in Scottsdale now, but I grew up on the west side.
Oh, me too. I grew up in Litchfield Park, Arizona.
No
right
way! Oh my gosh,
side.
my grandfather's house was on Cascada Circle.
Oh, you're kidding.
Oh my gosh, we probably went to grade school together. I wound up going. I graduated from Peoria High School. Did you go to Agua Fria?
Nah, well, I would have had I not moved, but I would have gone to Agua Fria.
Too funny. What a small
we go back
world.
far enough, we might even be related. Who knows?
I know. Wouldn't that be crazy? You're like my brother from another mother.
There you go. All right, sis. Well, let's talk about marriage and money then.
Marriage and money.
When you look at the reasons why people get divorced, one of the common things that people point to is money problems. And a lot of these money problems can be, I think, avoided through proper communication. So what is the biggest mistake that couples make when it comes to money and communication, Heather?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's about communication. And it's about communication, not just about money, but about background and understanding. What we do at the Unlock Your Wealth Foundation that's different than your traditional talking head personal finance gurus is our financial literacy program is brain-based financial literacy. So we have a lot of science involved because it's not about the money. We know to spend less and save more, but we don't. And so it's driven by biological processes and pre-programmed behaviors. And what we need to do as individuals is explore with our spouses or soon-to-be spouses what their experiences were growing up about money. How do their parents handle money?
So what
and
do
they agree with it, not agree with it?
What do you do in a situation, and let's say you have this conversation, and I like the approach that you take, by the way, because it reminds me, everybody and their mom knows that you buy low and sell high. Why is it that nobody does it? Well, these other factors keep people from doing that, and it's the same with many issues with money. So what do you do in a relationship when both have vastly different backgrounds? One family, were terrible with money. They spent everything. The other family saved everything. How do you balance those two different histories together in a marriage?
Well, that's a great question. And the way to do that successfully is to figure out which one of those money patterns stuck. Because if you think about it, how many times have people said, "Oh my God, you're just like your father," when you say that? So either we're just like our parents or like me with the crappy money management skills that I grew up with and then had to overcome myself from poor programming, is you go the other direction 180 degrees. So the experience itself isn't necessarily the problem if they were bad money managers. You have to say, well, how did that influence you? And so that was what you were exposed to. What did you glean from that? And what would you like to see happen? And if we can open those lines of communication with our partner or soon-to-be partner, and even though we come from vastly different things, we can find a common ground. And that's the key to successful money management in a marriage, is to find the common ground.
Find common ground, learn from past experience. Now you mentioned talking to a potential future partner. So at what stage in a relationship should you start talking about money and money habits? Is that early when you just start dating, or is it maybe when you're going to move to the next step and move in together or get married? When do you start talking about it?
That's funny you ask that, because you would think that it would be kind of taboo. Like, we'll discuss, like, previous sexual partners and positions before we talk about bank accounts and things like that.
I know. I can't get Garrow to stop talking about that. Darn it.
So the key is, and here it goes back to the biological stuff, you kind of almost have to do it up front. Because if you don't, and you get emotionally engaged, you start releasing these hormones. Oxytocin is like such a powerful drug that you will minimalize big things like bankruptcies, foreclosures, judgments, liens, maybe alimony, child support, or separate maintenance from a relationship you didn't even know about. These are things that materially affect your relationship. And if you are a good steward of your finances, you want to make sure that you're protected. I got fleeced in my first marriage. When I got divorced, I couldn't stop the guilt. And so I just kept writing checks until I had nothing. And I gave him everything. I slept on the floor for 4 months just to have peace and just to be away from this person. And it shouldn't be like that. You should know what somebody's aptitude for managing money is and determine whether or not you can weather that. Because ultimately, your life partner is supposed to enhance your own personal journey and quest through life. Like, they're not the be-all, end-all, and I think that's where some people also get confused. And so if they're not enhancing your life, they're detracting from it. And at the end of the day, if they leave you and with a financial mess, you got derailed from your financial journey, and you need to think about you first. And so many people, there's this preconceived notion that I have to subjugate my needs for my spouse, or I have to take care of this person, and that's not what a marriage is. And so I think that understanding what somebody's finances are and short-circuiting that emotional chemical dump of hormones that will keep you from looking at things reasonably with your rational, reasonable mind is the key.
Interesting. Very, very interesting take. We want to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about financial infidelity, what that is, what are we supposed to share with our spouses when it comes to our money habits. We, again, are joined by Heather Wagenhals, who's a personal financial expert, host of Unlock Your Wealth Radio. Also, check out our website. It's unlockyourwealth.com. Tons of great resources on there. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation. Phone number is 842-5376. That's 842-KERN. If you have any questions for us or the guest, give us a call. We'll be back. Welcome back, folks. We are your MoneyWise guys. What the heck are we talking about marriage for? Well, for good reason. Let me give you the phone number. It's 842-5376. That's 842-KERN. If you're out of the area, 1-800-640-5376. That's 800-640-KERN. We're joined right now by Heather Wagenhals. For the past 20 years, she's worked to empower others with her special blend of personal finance and wealth-building techniques. We're talking about marriage and money and being in a relationship and how you talk about money. My question to you, Heather, is what exactly do you talk about? When you're in a committed relationship, what do you talk about when it comes to money? Because I think sometimes what I hate is when I see a couple that are committed to each other and there's one spouse that is so anal about all the finances. They track every penny that the one spouse spends, but yet they never really focus on themselves. Is that what you mean by talking about finances in a marriage, or what exactly do you mean by communicating about money and your habits while you're in a committed relationship?
Well, you bring up a good point. You've got to talk about both of those issues, the excessive tracker, and you've got to talk about the excessive spender, because both of those are driven by behaviors from long ago and stuff that was set in place that they were exposed to maybe by their parents or some position of influence, like a teacher or an uncle or a relative, that sets these patterns in place. And once they get going, and as soon as you get a habit started, you know how hard habits are to break. And harping on what the outcome is of the particular habit without actually going to the core and looking at where people's values are where it comes to money, is not going to be productive. You've got to work on the core values and talk about the touchy-feely stuff in addition to addressing not just how they handle money, but what have been their specific financial experiences. Have they been good, bad, why? Why did these things happen? And is it because of carelessness? Is it because of maybe one came from an affluent family and married, and now they're not as affluent, but they spend like they're still affluent? Did somebody grow up where there were so many kids? And like your bean counter, for example, perhaps they grew up in a family where there were multiple kids, and they weren't allowed to have their own say or their own desires, and you're like, no, you can't have that. Why are you thinking of yourself? You need to think of everybody else. What about, there's not enough to go around in this family. And so that sort of pattern gets in place that even when they're making 6 or 7 figures, that they're still obsessive like that, and they can't enjoy their money because money isn't evil. Money is good, and it's a facilitator. So if you're a good person, money will facilitate your goodness. If you're not so good, then, well, it's going to facilitate a lot of problems for you. And you got to figure out where each person stands. And attitudes about money are what the motivators are for spending or saving. And if you got to figure out if you can live with that, because that's, money's the number one divorce problem.
Yeah, right. It reminds me, as you're talking, it reminds me of some good friends that I have that they feel money is the root of all evil. They feel that, you shouldn't be materialistic. You shouldn't focus on financial things. And the problem with that is they talk so little about money and finances that they are constantly in money problems, which forces them to talk about money. And so money now dominates their life, while what they're trying to accomplish is to be, what they're trying to accomplish is to talk less about money, but by not talking about it, they're forced to talk about it even more. So a healthy communication about money can actually reduce your dependence on it and can create a more happy life and a better marriage. And switching gears just a little bit, I want to talk about financial infidelity. What do you mean when you say financial infidelity?
Sounds cool.
Well, financial infidelity can be a couple of different things. It can be a positive financial decision, like saving, or a negative financial decision that someone makes, like spending, and it's withheld, or actively lied about, or dismissed, generalized, and when you start that secrecy, it doesn't matter if it's about money or sex, that's the problem. And it escalates when families start enjoining their kids in it. Well, don't tell Mom we bought this today. Don't tell Dad we're at the mall. If Dad asks, we went to the park.
Boy, I guess that's a sign. I've heard that phrase so many times. People say things like that. And I guess if you're saying things like that, that is a hint that maybe you're not talking about money properly in your relationship. Right.
And you're doing something you probably shouldn't be doing. I've had Larry Winget as a guest on my show on unlockyourwealthradio.com, and he says that stress is caused because of knowing what is right but doing what is wrong.
Knowing what is right but doing what is wrong. Boy, that is a human condition, isn't it?
It is. And, and like I said, it could be a positive thing. Saving and investing is a positive thing. But if you're having to create your own slush fund outside of your spouse, that's a problem. You got to look at, one, why am I doing this? What's the ultimate goal? And then you have to say, how productive can this possibly be if I'm keeping secrets from this person that I'm supposed to be in love with, and we're life partners, so we should be able to communicate about this. Transparency doesn't just belong to government.
Yeah, it's a practice thing. Even investing is so psychological. It becomes, the moment you start flirting with financial infidelity, the easier it starts to become. It snowballs. It's just
absolutely.
And you got to be careful with that. So once you think you're getting away with it, it snowballs into something different, and pretty soon you could be in trouble if you're
and that's where biological comes in, because you get away with it once, right? So now you've set the behavioral pattern in place. But, with the anticipation of anything that's illicit or immoral, we get this high of hormones that dump in the anticipation of the actual event. Like, the event tends to be less exciting. So, like, gamblers, they go and they have to bet bigger in order to get that same high. But you get hooked on the anticipation of whatever, the infidelity is. And that's where you get sucked in. And now biology takes over. And even if you wanted to say, oh, my gosh, I got to stop this, you get to this point where you can't, because the behavior pattern's been set in place. And now it's real, it's reinforced by your hormones. And you can't even get to that rational third brain that will say, hey, get up away and walk away from that poker table, or put the credit card back in your wallet and get out of the store. Like, that can't even happen once hormones start dumping, because the brain, that part of the brain just gets shut off, and so you're just driven by emotion. And so you've got to go get that high, because we're driven, towards pleasure and away from pain, so we got to go there.
Yeah, couples need to understand their money personalities. One might be a spender, one might be a saver, but then the spender might get a certain thrill by spending because their partner is a saver, and then it snowballs from there. Man, great conversation.
Yeah, well, Heather, we'd love to have you back on the program. We know you can talk about pretty much anything. Again, this is Heather Wagenhals. Check out our website. Highly recommend it. It's unlockyourwealth.com. Tons of resources on there. Lots of good information. Heather, thanks for joining us here on the MoneyWise program. Really appreciate your time.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You bet. You take care. We'll have her back on hopefully in the future here. All right, folks, we're going to take a break, go to the news. We come back. Lots more to go over here on the MoneyWise program. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back.